Well, this you're listening to the Mr. Josh podcast, TMJP.com, the MisterJoshPodcast.com. This is basically an intro into who I am and why I'm doing this and why I decided that it was about time that you would get to hear the opinions, rants, and insights of a sarcastic Jewish super sweet asshole, because that's how I've been described by so many people. Um, the topics of this show are it's gonna really vary. We're gonna talk about my life and how the things that I've gone through and been through you may identify with. It's been a very interesting journey on a long road. It's also very entertaining. So you're gonna hear all sorts of things and anecdotes and the musings of a father and a dog owner and a Florida resident, pretty much my whole life, with New York blood and I love to discuss news and current events and politics and anything that matters. I have very strong opinions that many of you will like, many of you won't like. You can probably see from my hat, I am 420 and CBD friendly. And I, you know, hey man, it's a big wave coming, and we can discuss the pros and cons of that. I plan on doing that. Also, I value local businesses, so I'll be featuring as much as I can local businesses in the area and speaking with folks that contribute to the small business. I own a small business. I freelance as well as a writer and a blogger online, so I am my own business as well. And I think it's important to give those people an opportunity to show what they're all about and what have you. And it probably would have been a good idea to do that. So there we go. And also interviews. My favorite format is to interview people. I have done interviews with Sid Rosenberg, who is the original shock jock of sports radio. He told me after our interview that it was the greatest interview he's ever done. I don't know why he would lie about that, but it was very informative and very in depth. And he was a great guy. I've interviewed DJ Irie, who's the Miami Heat official DJ and a huge mega DJ down in South Florida at all the nightclubs that you wish you could go to. I've interviewed Eddie Trotta, a very famous custom motorcycle builder. If you're familiar with custom bikes, those $20,000-$30,000 bikes, you're familiar with Eddie Trotta. And I've also interviewed Dirt Nasty Simon Rex, who the rapper, and Gorilla Tech, who is a hip hop producer. So I definitely would like to incorporate interviews as well on the Mr. Josh podcast. I am MisterJoshW, so you can look for me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, whatnot. All these social media platforms will be, this podcast will be done as well in video format, so you'll be able to see my ugly face as well as hearing my annoying voice. Pretty simple. Some of the things that I really like to talk about as well is Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I'm a big believer in it, so I'd love to talk to people about that and what their opinions on Bitcoin and crypto are. And we're gonna have some shows under the umbrella as well. I was at one time in my life I was a DJ in a gentleman's club, and there were many stories attributed to that. And I would love to that are very funny and very entertaining and crass, and some of them, are probably not suitable for children. And but that being said, we'll have the Stripper Chronicles. You'll be introduced to the Bitcoin Bro, and we definitely have some great stuff. All of this, by the way, is going to be done on the Space Coast Podcast Network. And my a good friend of mine, Jesse, who runs the network, as soon I was sold the moment I walked in the studio. So what you are seeing is all the fruits of the labors of the Space Coast Podcast Studio. So don't hesitate to look into them. I am also, to wrap it up, I'm not a very religious person, and I would love to discuss religion with anybody, but I feel I am blessed by God. The only reason I am sitting here right now, the only reason I'm able to speak on this microphone is through the grace of God, because I very well could have easily been locked in a Panamanian prison, and I'll get to that later on down the road and why. But that being said, I could very easily still be there, or probably would have passed away in there. And there's a whole story with right here that you're seeing right here, cover that up, from New Times, and that discusses a lot of that, and we'll get into that later on down the road. So this is what it's all about. I'm a interesting, polarizing character, a little bit Howard Stern, a little bit George Carlin, a little bit shit, I don't know, some other asshole that you don't like. But I'm also a very kind and sweet and caring person that likes to listen to all sides and learn from others, and certainly hope that they can learn from me. So this is going to be a platform that I've been dying to do for the longest time. I'm glad I met somebody that's allowing me the chance, and I am now going to take it full steam ahead. I have my stupid little social media. Well, you guys aren't stupid, but I have a very small social media following that, 2,500 on Instagram, 300 on Twitter. It's a nice little start, not having a podcast or anything like that, just being little old me or big old me, as you can see. And here we go. You're going to get on the journey. So once again, this is the Mr. Josh podcast, TMJP.com. You'll check out that. We'll get that going eventually on the Space Coast Podcast Network. I am Mr. Josh W. I'm out.